A child, they spend most of their time in the subconscious, in their unconscious mind, in their body. They live purely in the quantum reality. Mm-hmm. They have no sense of time. They can easily imagine themselves as a lion 1 minute, and 1 second they can transform back into a cat. Child, right? Children can transform into anything they like. That is the nature. You can begin to get the quantum feel of the nature. Play is one massive doorway into the quantum field. There is a whole new life waiting for us as human species. If we get into this area of our brain health and electromagnetic field of the heart, there's a whole new world of learning, of discovery.
Have you ever thought about your meaning of life?
What is our purpose here? You're listening to CatharSIS, a podcast about the meaning of life, created by two sisters who are in the field of marriage and family therapy.
Hello, my name is Michal.
And I'm Maayan.
This podcast was created in honor of our dad, who was a hematologist-oncologist, a medical doctor who would always ask everyone and anyone, what is the meaning of life?
It's a personal yet relatable podcast where we interview people and have discussions about the meaning of life, of course, as well as friendships, relationships, love, nostalgia, how to cope with an existential crisis, and normalizing grief and death. So Kola is a brain health advocate, and his inspiration, passion, and study extends from neuroscience of attachment science, quantum mechanics, astrophysics, and astrobiology. So cool, Kola. I want to tell the listeners, how do we know you?
Yes, I think we met on Instagram, and I just noticed that you guys just, check up on me every now and then. So, and then I got an email. I think I followed you or something like that. And then I got an email from him like, oh, wow, it makes sense. It makes sense. I tend to do the same thing as well. I follow people for quite a while. And then one day I just dropped an email.
I saw that you were interested in attachment theory and the biology of attachment, and that's really up my alley. I work with children.
I want to show you the book that I'm obsessed with, The Neuroscience of Human Relationships.
Oh my God. It's a brilliant book. I've not read that book, actually. I've not read that book, but I know the author.
By Louis Cozzolino.
Yeah, he's a professor at the school I graduated from, and I was actually in the middle of reading that book when I was looking through your page, and I was like, wow, this guy is interested in interpersonal neurobiology. How interesting. And you told us that you are a corporate brain health facilitator and consultant.
Yes, just recently.
Yeah, and that you are passionate and ferociously curious about the experience of awe.
Yes.
So
important.
I want to know more. Please tell us.
Yeah, what got you interested in this field?
It's kind of like, it's been uncommon, but it didn't actually open up until 2018. I went through a not so great divorce, separation from a woman I still love. And, when you understand the nature of trauma and the biology of attachment, it makes sense why the brain does what it does when it experiences too much emotional pain. Mm-hmm. And before then, I was very much into personal development, Anthony Robbins. I was very much into, a lot of spiritual practices, yoga, deep breathing, which was brilliant. I was very much in touch. I kind of understand the science of emotion, that emotion is the ultimate power. Emotion is a driving force. So I kind of have that basis that drives my experience of life, and that drives my behavior, my relationship, how I connect, how I work. And during that time, before then, I also was involved in sales and marketing as well. Mm-hmm. So, and I know very well that if you don't have emotion, if you don't connect to your body, to your emotion, you have no presence. And in the world of sales, you cannot make connection. And if you can't make connection, if you cannot get other people to respond to you in a way that is kind to them and to yourself, then you're nothing's going to happen for you. Mm. And then, so I have that understanding for a long time. When I was 21, I think, or 21 or 20, I stopped eating junk foods. Mm. McDonald's, Burger King, what kind of crap. I was reading a book, I think Dr. Don Colbert, and he's reading a book called Divine Health. And I also read a book by Dave Rabin, if I'm right. Dave Rabin is written a book as well on health. At that time, that was in 2000, that was in 1999. So I started to change my whole body relationship, biochemistry. I started running, and I began to really understand how powerful emotions is and meditation. And and I have that understanding, that background, but there's a lot of things that was happening then and that I don't understand about what was happening to us at that time. It wasn't until the separation I began to really look, because that is the nature of the kind of person that I am. I would begin to look at what happened, what is really happening. And I begin to understand the nature of the brain, how the brain is designed to create safe connection and safe relationship. It is the very essence that, and now they say that the brain consciousness, which I don't like to use the word, but the brain activities, the brain wave, is not just localized in the brain, is in the structure of space memory, which is further off from space-time. So, and my development, my understanding of attachment began to redevelop with my understanding of biochemistry, biology, and emotions, how they begin to form that way. And I came across Dr. Alan Shaw and Dr. Stephen Porges' material, and also Dr. Daniel Siegel as well.
I love Daniel Siegel.
Yeah,
it just, there's no way you listen to. It's so simple, but yet there is something I've begun to understand just recently, that it's good to do all those education, those cycle education. Mm-hmm. They're so important. And what I love about Dr. Daniel Siegel is that it also brings all of those things into meditation. Mm-hmm. Because once you start to educate and get knowledge, the right knowledge and understanding, you begin to feel some neural pathways sprouting, like a deeper understanding. And that is so important, that is so vital. And what really connected deeply to me was having been a father, and the attachment science, the attachment practices and attachment play, they come naturally to me. And of course, I did learn from attachment books on playing with kids and the thing behind peekaboo, play fights, which is rumble, tumble, and play, I think. All of those things, they have their neuroscience basis. Even Puddle Jump have neuroscience basis to it. And so I really begin to understand all of that. And plus the fact that they all come, like I said, they come so naturally to me, because it's part of our biology. It's part of our makeup. unless something happens in childhood, that's when the emotions are like guiding compass, and emotion are like intelligence, are like, I don't know what to call it. They are like what connect us to the memories, the information that our ancient fathers or mothers have left for us. And without emotions, you cannot connect to that.
Right.
And so, yeah. And, I really begin to absorb the information of all these amazing scientists. And attachment science really makes sense, really, really makes sense. And what is actually more powerful? Attachment, it's so powerful in a sense that it's so much in our biological makeup, in our brain, in our biology, in every fiber of our biochemistry, that unless you have major trauma that is untreated, undiagnosed, and what happens is that when people have untreated, undiagnosed trauma is part of life. Trauma is part of human existence. It is absolutely normal. But what is not normal is when it goes undiagnosed and untreated.
Right.
And, I'm coming to a point where I feel like much of it has to do with the social structure that we live in. You're welcome to disagree with me, but what I'm coming to is much, the family unit can just, sometimes things can bypass family unit. Maybe your father and mother, they inherit their own trauma and then they pass it to you. Absolutely, that can happen. Things can, bypass us, and mostly because of the shame around it and the secrecy around it as well. And when I say shame, the picture is more of a biological process of dysregulation where damn if you do and damn if you don't. And I've spent time with people with trauma, and I've been with people with trauma, and I kind of understand that, and I've been traumatized myself. So you understand the emotional block to wanting connection and then resisting it and wanting to voice and feeling powerless. You kind of understand it. And it's so has to do with your biochemistry because, once you've been through it once, because the reason why we have long-time memory is because of strong emotions. Your brain just take a snapshot and install it.
Yeah.
And then if it happens again, it continues to reinforce that, and it will begin to live within the bounds of that neurochemical, which is emotion. And we begin to even think within the bound of that neurochemical. And we think this is all there is. And it's very difficult because, I have been there myself. I've lived through a very difficult, uncertain situation for 19 years in the UK. And I'm at a point where I realized that probably I've diverted from my topic, but feel free to stop me anytime and bring me back. And I realized that, when people go through trauma, even the chaos in their head and their biochemistry that goes along with that thought and thinking processes, it's so difficult. And for people, this is, for people who have experienced relational trauma, which is where shame comes, is tough. It's really difficult. I have seen it, and I know how challenging it can be, because when somebody that you love, when somebody who's supposed to love you, we're supposed to be your primary caregiver. Suppose, not just suppose, your brain as a child actually expect that loving hand to be there when you come out of the passage, the birth passage. That primal brain is as old as any brain that anybody has. And that brain expect a loving hand to be there, because that is what evolution has taught us, the survivor of the most nurtured. And so, but when that loving hand is not there, can you imagine? It's like your whole world just collapsed. I'm sure you must have had it before. People say it's like, I want to fall into the earth. I want the earth to swallow me. It's like, I want to disappear, which is dissociation come into place. So, it is. I have seen, which is why the body holds on to that experience as a child. And if it continues like that without intervention, like I said before, families may not want to deal with it because they know how difficult it is. But the responsibility of society is to know that. Just like we are police, right? We are police. We know there's some people that we want to do something naughty, right? So we are police to just keep everybody in check once in a while, because we know human beings, right? Even sometimes that can be too much. And so is, trauma. We need social transformation, social reform, where, society knows that even though there's family living within the four bounds of their house, things can go wrong. And the nature of trauma is, don't talk about it. The nature of trauma is, I don't want to talk about it. The nature of trauma is, I want to run away.
It's almost like we need to normalize that trauma. It's a thing in society. It's a thing in our life, and it's something that we need to not avoid. We need to, use that.
Especially when so many people have experienced trauma.
But it makes me also think about, I liked how you said that this is a requirement, just like, people in their professional jobs know their requirement for how to do. When you are a parent or when you are taking care of a child, it is a responsibility to know attachment theory. And when you are adopting a child, you have to go through so many hoops and steps in order to adopt. But anyone can just have a baby without a screening involved.
A good point right there. Put it down on paper. That point just makes you put it down. That's so important.
It is, because it's not just the health and well-being of the child that's being born. It's you're raising a member that's going to go into society. So that's a big responsibility. I think that there should be a parenting license or some kind of requirement, like parenting classes before having kids.
Yes. Oh my God.
The therapy I do with these kids and their caregivers is play therapy. I think play is so important, not just when you're small, but play stays with you through the lifetime. I think it's important for humans to know how to play. What even got you into this? What was the impulsive thing that led you into this field?
It was the divorce. That was 2018.
Okay, recent.
Yeah, and being a father as well, because I did a stay-at-home dad for almost a year and a half. And just observing how it comes so naturally, the attachment practice comes so naturally, wanting to bond. And these things, I was listening to Dr. Susan Johnson, whom I haven't listened to for a while. And she said that, that Italian men, they love their kids, they touch their kids, they caress their kids, they hold their kids. And, and this is so vital. I didn't have that growing up, you see, both, I didn't have that growing up, but I think being in England by myself since the age of 17, I kind of grew into my own and understanding biology. So I did a lot of inner work back then in London before I moved to Bristol. And I also realized that my dad didn't play with me when I was a child. So I better go and get myself attachment playbook, which I still have over there. And I just start reading it and start noticing that rumble, play, those kind of things they help kids to understand the use of sympathetic energy and to notice sympathetic energy in their body when it's present, whether with somebody that they love or with somebody they are trying to run away from. And if you have a sympathetic energy in your body, and you need to get used, you need to know it so well that, wow, I have this energy, I'm about to run. It's a great energy. Sympathetic energy is a great energy. It helps you to move, helps you to get out of the bed in the morning. It helps you to think. It helps you to move your thinking about. And to be able to take that sympathetic energy and move it towards play, which is the parasympathetic nervous system, move it towards play and intimacy with someone that you love, is a very powerful thing. And even if you're having a fight with someone that you love, you can notice that because you're so used to it, to rough, rumble, tumble play. Yeah. Because you're so used to it, which I learned from a book called Attachment Play, that if you play with a child that way, play fight, it helps them understand the sympathetic energy in a very playful way. So they know how to use that sympathetic energy towards play and creativity and joy. And they also know how to use it when they need to protect themselves. And they also know when to back off from that energy and move it towards immobilization to relax and play with the people that they love. So I learned that from that book. So, I realized that, I didn't have that. And I love my child. I love my son very much. And this thing, when I say love, actually, it can be like something manufactured or something so biological that I can't even, which is why I use the word the biology of attachment so much, because it's so biological process that just like when you eat your food, your body just knows what to do. When somebody you love, you just want to touch them, isn't it? So is attachment practices and play. But when things go wrong from childhood and it's not treated, and what happened is that people ended up, I have worked with people who are like 20-year-old, 18, 19-year-old, and I've mentored them, and I noticed that it doesn't matter what kind of family you come from, actually. You can have trauma. That's the most funny thing about trauma. You can come from a family where your mom and dad love each other and they're together. Whatever you call love, who knows? Nowadays. So people sometimes, not every child is the same. Not every child nervous system is the same. So why another child can be okay with daddy going to work or mommy going to work 5 days a week and coming back home, for another child, that may be too much. But you can also understand that when there is secrecy around it, when there is trauma, generational trauma, and when there is, and most of the time it happens through medical, where maybe the mom wasn't feeling physically well at all, and the child is neglected, not intentionally, just because mommy wasn't feeling well, and nobody noticed in time that the child is being alone too much. So the child can end up experiencing too much pain, and things can go on that way, and they pass on to their children as well, probably because they met somebody else. They met a man, a woman who also has a similar story of trauma, and then they create this ball of chaos, and then that continues. It will shock you. It's like a butterfly effect. It will shock you how trauma can start. It can happen through anything.
I'm enjoying everything that you're talking about. It's just so stimulating, and I love this. I was wondering, have you ever read the book, The Body Keeps the Score?
Not really.
Do you know that book?
I have deep in and out of the material.
Yeah, it's like it talks about how trauma is stored in the body, stored in our cells. So as you were talking, I was thinking about that book and just that concept of how trauma is actually stored in our cells. And then I was also thinking how there's a difference between pain and then suffering. So suffering being our emotional reaction to that pain. And, you were talking about long-term memory and so it's like we get triggered in relationships from what happened long ago in our childhood, but that emotional pain gets triggered, and then we have a reaction to it in real time that causes our suffering.
Yeah. That can continue suffering if it's not addressed or helped. And people that have trauma, they don't want to deal with it. Not because they don't want to deal with it. The memory is just too difficult. The nervous system response, I've taught them biochemically that, don't go there. It's too much. Mm-hmm. So when someone wants to change, you have to really understand both educationally, you have to really get it, like that change is a neurochemical death. It's a death of the whole self.
And that's exactly seems like why it's so hard for people to change, because it's, even though change is a good thing, it's also foregoing something else. And it's all through transition. And what's come up for me when you talked about your divorce and your child being born, it seems like you experienced that, let go of one part of you that you knew, and now you are in a different part. And it really reminds me of what we go through during transitions, whether they're good or bad transitions. Mm-hmm. Transitions, nonetheless, becoming a new parent, having a bad breakup, graduating high school, graduating college, you go through this grief when you go through transitions.
Yes. And like I said, I keep going back to society, how our educational system is set up. And I cannot, for the life right now, it's when I look at society and education, I just feel like, I just go like this, like,
yeah, you shake your head.
What is going on our planet? It's like we are engineering ourselves towards death, toward destruction. It's like our educational system, everything is engineered towards some collapse and towards some destruction. And I had this statement a long time ago that we are moving from the evolution of the nervous system to dissolution of the nervous system. And if we as society understand that the crown achievement of human evolution is the brain, the frontal lobe, if we truly understand that the reason why we can call a civilization is because of this amazing brain, then we will create technologies, we will create materials that will really respect this thing, that will truly respect all our schools. The way we design things will be in the honor and will be to glorify, in a sense, it will be to enshrine, in a sense, this brain. And there is archaeologist discovery about there is 13 skull. They call it 13 skull. They were eating on this planet, on our Earth. Mm-hmm. And they found the 12 of these skulls. And they're still looking for one. I think they found it. I'm not sure. But what is amazing about this skull is that they are perfect skulls. And they are crystal skulls. Crystal skulls. And this crystal skull, when they examine it, they said there is no technology on this planet that could create such a skull. There's no technology we have right now that could create it. And the interesting thing about this skull being crystal is this phenomenon that we use in our mobile phones, in most of our technologies we have today, which are now operating on quantum computers. And it's very interesting that they are using this brain model to create technologies. And the reason why I mentioned this crystal skull is the father. Number one is crystal, and it's a perfect score. And number two, they're wondering, what would they use this skull for? What would they use this? Why did they create this score with this particular crystal so perfect? Why? Guess what? It's called piezoelectric effect. Piezoelectric effect is a phenomenon that happens in our brain, in the energy centers of the body. So if you're doing a particular breathing practices, rhythmic breathing, where you breathe through your nose for like 3 times, 3 inhale and you hold. You hold for 6 times and then you exhale for 9 times, a bit longer, and then you start again that process. But the key thing is like a pelvic floor practices, where you draw the pelvic floor in and you empty, you draw your abdomen in as well, and you take in that breath and you hold and you inhale again and you do that. What happens is that it's beginning to shift the energy centers from the lower chakras to the heart. And the heart chakra is a very powerful chakra, very, very powerful. It's now being measured by an institute called Heart Institute. Heart Institute, where when the heart is open and it's in that state of loving kindness, Dr. Daniel Siegel, loving kindness meditation, and your heart is open and you're in that place of compassion and love, it's your electromagnetic field extends 6 meters away from you and merge with the magnetic field of the earth. So this piezoelectric effect, as you draw the energy from the heart center to the throat, to the crown, to the pineal gland, and to the crown, it touches the pineal gland. The energy the pineal gland is like a crystal. It's like piezo means pressure. It begins to apply pressure on the pineal gland. And when you apply pressure on a crystal, it creates an electric effect. So it will amplify the energy maybe by 1,000 times. So your amplification. So they were wondering, why would they have this crystal score? And of course, it makes sense that they'll be using it as a telepathic communication, as a form of getting information from the ether, from the quantum fluctuation, from the quantum vacuum. Yeah.
I'm just so mesmerized by everything you're talking about. So I just want to continue listening to I love the paths that you're on. But the initial question was, what kind of sparked your interest in all of this? And you also were talking about how you got interested in the biology of attachment, neuroscience, being someone who is interested in the experience of awe and connecting it to interpersonal neurobiology.
So that experience, I'll try and take in the direction, when we understand the dissolution, the dissolution, the evolution and the dissolution of the nervous system, how the brain is so powerful. And not the brain is so powerful, when I say how our biological makeup, how we're designed to, if we understand the power of the brain and the power of our biological design, we will create our environments in a way that really honors, that really shows that we understand that we have a very powerful brain, a very powerful nervous system. We have a very powerful brain that, but, and we're talking about that in terms of trauma, and everything all connects, the trauma, brain, society, and our educational system. If we understand the nature of the evolutionary nature of the brain and the nature of reality, we will understand that trauma is one pain. It's like when they split uranium, when they make the first bomb, it's like that. We got to be careful with the brain as much as we are careful with the way we handle chemicals we found on the earth. And if our brain is right anyway, we won't be dabbling into nuclear weapon and splitting nuclear weapon and stuff like that. We won't be doing that. But if the brain is split and the fear brain, which is a primitive brain, is neglected in society, which it is neglected in society, and that is activated, then our action will be driven by this primitive brain.
Yeah.
And which is really our default setting, actually. When we are born, it's our default setting. So, but luckily we have years of evolution that we now have the newer brain, which is a frontal lobe. But society need to realize that trauma is really, really a big thing.
Yeah. And it's not also just about finding solutions to numb the trauma or avoid the trauma, like you said. Like, we really need to actually bring this trauma and this pain and this suffering into light and work with it. And that's how to work with that primitive brain, not just finding ways to like close our eyes or close our ears and be like, la la la, like we can't, like you need to work with your pain in order to attract healthy relationships with yourself, attract healthy relationships with others.
All our technologies right now are moving towards quantum computer. But the model, if you go to a class where they're teaching quantum computers, you would think you are in a class with Daniel Siegel, because they will tell you exact same model that the brain, a healthy brain, operates on. Yeah. So, so it is so, the brain model, the brain map, it's the nature of reality is so clear that it's like intertwined. The nature of reality is so, if you look at the child, for example, a child, they spend most of their time in the subconscious and the unconscious mind, in their body. That's where a child lives. They live purely in the quantum reality. Mm-hmm. They have no sense of time. They can easily imagine themselves as a lion 1 minute, and 1 second they can transform back into a cat. Child, right? Children can transform into anything they like.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
They can tell you I'm a aeroplane right now, and 2 minutes I'm a pilot, and 5 minutes I can hardly keep up. That is the nature. You can begin to get the quantum feel of the nature. And play is one massive doorway into the quantum field. There is a whole new life waiting for us as human species. If we get into this area of our brain health and electromagnetic field of the heart, there's a whole new world of learning, of discovery, of galaxies. We want to contact the galaxy. No, we don't need to contact other life forms out there. We don't need that. What we need is to sort our brain out. Mm-hmm, right. And then if you sort our brain out, of course, we'll be changing our environment.
Yeah.
And then we'll be changing the way we create chemical. We'll be changing the way we create material. And then our earth will be so pure that if there is life form, other intelligent life out there, which there is, they will be begging to come and check us out.
Yeah. This actually is reminding me, there's this woman named Diane Ackerman, and she is an American poet. She goes, "Play is our brain's favorite way of learning." And it inspired me from what we want to ask you the question that led us here. How do you define the meaning of life?
The meaning of life is very interesting. I did read the book by Frank Viktor Frankl.
Yeah, meaning Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah, I read it a lot of time. I can tell you that I've watched all of the movies about the Holocaust. I've watched everything. I've watched Life is Beautiful by Roberto Paper. And over the years, I think the meaning of life is to magnify the human emotion. How much love, joy, ecstasy can you sustain in your body? Yes, life will give you sadness. Yes, life will give you all kinds. But our meaning, our existence is defined by how we create meaning, which is, could you take that sadness and create profound joy and meaning for yourself and for others? So that's what I mean, like the purpose of the meaning of life is to magnify human emotion.
Yeah.
To magnify human emotion so that we may experience more joy, would you say?
So that we may experience life in its entirety.
Life in its entirety.
Not just happiness, but sadness and joy and peace and chaos and ecstasy and bliss and awe. And there's more awe on the planet than there is suffering.
Yeah.
There's more awe on the planet. There's more joy and ecstasy and bliss on the planet. There's so much. We just created a system. We managed to create a system to man. Most of the suffering we see on the planet is man-made. Yeah. So I feel like the meaning of life for me is to magnify the human emotion. Magnify the human emotion.
And perhaps when the human emotion does get magnified, there will be, like you are picturing, less suffering. Why would there be murder when someone's emotions magnified and that empathy is magnified, that passion is magnified?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That connection is magnified.
Right. The connection.
I love it, Kola. We so appreciate your time here today, and we need to collaborate again and again and again because we are so, I'm going to speak for both of us. I feel like we are so lucky to have connected with you because, you know, it's people like you that make this world a better place. And when I say that, it's because you care about psychoeducation, you care about awe, you care about the things that are actually important. And we have so much work to do as a society on a global level, on an individual level. We have work to do to get to that place, but to know that that's the end goal is a comforting goal to live by.
I felt your magnified emotions. I feel your passion. I feel that these topics really light you up and fuel you. So it's just been such a pleasure to talk to you.
It all makes sense when we understand the quantum field. It all makes sense. Why the brain, it's like the crown achievement of human evolution.
Kola, where can our listeners find you if they want to reach you?
Always find me on Instagram. I'm always sharing anything on top of my list. Yeah. I'll put it on there. And hopefully before end of the year, I will have a website and I'll start sharing more of my stuff on there.
Please write a book.
Yes, please. I will get it right
away. I will. Do you know where I'm going? I'm actually getting back to university as well to study neuroscience. Yeah, I decided I'm going to do it because I want to be direct in touch with research and stuff in the future. I don't want to be reading research from a book. No, I want to be directly in touch with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
In a world where I'm a drop in the ocean, an Israeli, American, whatever, in France, to be completely happy and satisfied in my environment, all I need is one friend. 2 friends, it's a luxury. Okay, the ultimate friend is the one you open up your soul to, the one you share with, the one who actually gives you the full reaffirmation that you thirst for. Mm-hmm. Okay, we all do that. Okay, we all have the thirst for reaffirmation.